In a world where vampires rule with an iron fist and humans live in eternal fear, one rises who is born of the curse itself. Werewolf and vampire clash in a battle for power, eternity, and freedom. But true strength will be decided not by who wins, but by who can sacrifice themselves for the future. The wind howled over the black towers of the ancient castle, whose ruins had been hidden for centuries behind impenetrable forests. Once, this place was the heart of an entire empire of night, a land where vampires reigned and humans only whispered their names. But years passed. Exterminations, wars, and hunters turned the castle into an empty shell, filled only with shadow and dust. That night, the darkness trembled. A tomb, hidden deep within the crypt, cracked with a groan, and a muffled breath echoed in the damp air. From the sarcophagus rose a silhouette, tall, gaunt, with pale skin and eyes burning with red fire. Lord Arenhel, an exiled vampire whose name had long been erased from chronicles, once again stepped onto the earth. His voice resonated like a roll of thunder in the void. How many centuries have I slept? And how much blood will have to be shed to reclaim what is mine? The flame of hatred that sustained his immortality flared with new vigor. But Arenhel understood. Alone, he could not raise an empire from the dust. He needed an ally, equally cursed, equally thirsty for blood and revenge. And fate heard. On the outskirts of the forest, not far from the ruins, hunters pursued a beast. The pack of werewolves had almost disappeared. Humans with silver weapons and holy amulets had exterminated them almost to the last. But one survived. A massive alpha, wounded, emaciated, still tearing at the throats of his enemies, even as his body was riddled with arrows. The vampire appeared in the clearing suddenly, as if he had grown out of the darkness itself. His movements were swift, like shadows. In an instant, he tore 3 hunters apart, burned their bones in the crimson fire of his spells, and ripped the heart out of a 4th's chest. The forest filled with screams, and then a deathly silence fell. The werewolf, bleeding, growled, ready to pounce on the new stranger as well. His fangs gleamed in the moonlight. But Arenhel merely raised a hand. Quiet beast. If you wish to live, you will fight with me, not against me. The alpha exhaled hoarsely, breathing heavily. In his gaze was hunger and hatred, but also a spark of understanding. Before him stood one who was stronger, one who could offer a chance for revenge. Humans killed my pack, he snarled, barely holding on to human speech. I want blood. Arenhel smiled so coldly that even the night seemed to chill. Then you shall have it. But not only the blood of humans. We will burn their cities. We will trample their sanctuaries. We will turn their children into slaves. You crave revenge. I crave power. Together, we will revive the empire of the night. Between the vampire and the werewolf, eternal enemies, an alliance was forged, sealed not by oaths, but by the thirst for destruction. And in just a few nights, the first city fell. The werewolf burst into homes, tearing people to pieces, hearing echoes of his pack's pain in their screams. The vampire, majestic and ruthless, raised the dead and turned them into his servants. Blood flowed in torrents, temple walls crumbled, and ash covered the land. Rumors of the new nightmare spread quickly. People began to pray for salvation, light torches, and prepare silver. But the brighter their fire burned, the deeper the darkness became. Arenhel once again took the throne in his castle, but now beside him stood the beast, his living storm, his fangs and claws. Their empire was just beginning to rise from blood. This is just the beginning. the vampire said, gazing into the night sky. Let the world know that blood and fangs once again rule this world. Night fell upon the plain, and with it came terror. The city, surrounded by wooden walls, prepared for defense. Guards stood on towers with bows, blacksmiths distributed crudely forged spears to peasants, and priests recited prayers, sprinkling holy water on the gates. But none of it mattered. First came the howl. Prolonged, soul-tearing, it made everyone turn to the forest. From the darkness burst a dark shadow, the alpha werewolf, his body now appearing even larger and stronger after the ritual Arenhel had performed on him. His claws gleamed as if forged from black iron, and his eyes glowed with a crimson light. "Werewolf!" one of the guards screamed, and cries of terror rippled along the walls. The beast leaped. The wooden planks of the wall cracked under his impact. The bodies of the guards flew down. In the same second, a cold laugh echoed in the air, and a tall figure in a black cloak appeared on the tower. The vampire Lord Arenhel, spreading his arms, summoned shadows from the earth. From under the houses and squares, the dead began to crawl out. Skeletons and mutilated corpses he had raised in the previous battle. The city plunged into chaos. People fled, tried to escape, but the beast tore them apart right in the doorways, and the undead surrounded them from all sides. The cries of women and children mingled with the gasps of the dying. In the center of the square, priests tried to erect a protective circle, but Arenhel descended directly to them. His eyes gleamed with blood-red light, and the words of prayer froze on their lips. With a single movement, he ripped the heart out of the eldest among them, and then turned to the remaining ones. "Where is your God? Why is he silent?" None answered. The circle crumbled, and their blood soaked the stones of the square. The werewolf, choking in thirst, tore the last guard in half and raised his head to the sky, his howl echoing across the plain like a war cry. People tried to break out of the city, but the vampire raised walls of shadows. No one could leave. When dawn touched the horizon, the city was dead. The streets were strewn with bodies, the walls soaked with blood. Above the ruins stood two figures, the vampire and the werewolf, lords of chaos. "People will gather armies," the werewolf said, licking his fangs. "They know we are coming for them." Arenhel smirked. "Let them gather. The more blood they bring, the stronger we will become. Their faith will crumble when they see that even light cannot stop the night." Their alliance grew stronger, but beneath it lurked poison. The werewolf felt that with each of Arenhel's rituals, his rage grew stronger, but also infused with another's will. The vampire, however, saw the beast not as an equal, but as a weapon, a blade that would one day have to be broken. But for now, the empire grew. From neighboring villages, captives were driven to the castle. Some became victims for rituals, others were turned into mindless slaves. On the ruins of the old fortress, new towers were erected, over which the banners of blood and fangs once again rose. People began to call them the Shadow of the East, and every city their armies came to became a black spot on the map, a place where even a traveler dared not enter. But soon, rumors of them reached the kingdom's capital. The king, upon learning of the massacre, convened a council. Old chronicles were consulted, and it turned out that Arenhel's name was still preserved in ancient books as one who had once tried to subjugate humanity. Then, only the combined forces of knights and the Order of Templars had defeated him. "We have encountered him again," said one of the advisors. "And if we do not strike first, He will destroy the entire kingdom. In the capital, troops began to gather. Priests brought out relics that had been preserved for centuries. Swords imbued with light, spears wrapped in silver, and shields blessed for protection against darkness. And at that time, in his castle, Arenhel stood on the balcony and watched the horizon. The werewolf entered the hall, his steps heavy, his breathing ragged. "The humans are preparing an army," he said. "We must strike first." Arenhel did not answer immediately. A cold smile touched his lips. "Let them come themselves. Their blood will flow like a river, and in that river we will drown their hope." And night once again deepened over the world, foreshadowing war. Darkness hung over the land, as if night itself had descended to shield Arenhel's army. Thousands of creatures gathered at the walls of his castle. Undead, skeletons with rusty weapons, shadows gliding along the ground, and new vampires he had turned from captives. In the center stood the alpha werewolf, towering over them, his body seemingly filled with strength, his fangs gleaming in the gloom. "Today," Arenhel boomed, addressing his army, "we will erase the hope of humanity. Their light will be our flame, their blood, our rivers." The army roared, thundered, and from the depths of the forest came the sound of a horn. On the plain, thousands of torches lit up. The human army came forth to meet them. Ranks of knights in steel armor, banners of the kingdom, prayers of Templars. Their weapons shone with silver, and in the front ranks walked priests with relics. In their hands glowed blades that left trails of light in the air. "In the name of light," the human leader cried, and thousands of voices answered him. The battle began. The werewolf leaped first, roaring as he charged into the ranks of knights. His claws tore through armor like paper, blood sprayed fountains onto the grass. People screamed, but dozens of spears plunged into his body. He howled, collapsed to the ground, and then rose, crushing them, and ripped the heart from the nearest enemy. The undead moved in a wave, crashing against the humans, and the earth trembled under their assault. But silver cut through them like a knife through cloth. Every touch of a sacred blade turned the dead to ash. And then Arenhel entered the fray. A vortex of darkness descended from the sky. The vampire spread his cloak, and hundreds of bats soared into the sky, covering the warriors. He moved like a shadow, appearing among knights, tearing out their hearts, then disappearing, turning into smoke. His magic twisted the bodies of enemies, and their souls he devoured right on the battlefield. "He's too strong," people cried. "Hold the line." The priests raised their relics, and the sky lit up with light. A radiance flared, and the darkness retreated, forcing the undead to freeze. Arenhel hissed, his skin smoking. "Light is not eternal," he roared, breaking the circle with a blast of black lightning. Meanwhile, the werewolf fought like a devil. His body was riddled with spears, but he did not fall. His howl shook the earth, and from it, in his pack, those few whom Arenhel had managed to resurrect, a maddened rage awakened. They threw themselves at the humans, breaking their formation. Screams, the clang of metal, howls and snarls merged into an infernal symphony. The battlefield became a lake of blood. But the humans were not broken. "Forward!" their leader cried, holding a sword that shone like the sun. "For the king! For light!" He rushed straight at the werewolf. Their collision was like two worlds clashing. The sword sliced through the air and plunged into the beast's shoulder, burning flesh to the bone. The werewolf roared and knocked the knight to the ground, but the blade flared, and a wave of light threw him back. Arenhel appeared nearby, spreading darkness like wings, shielding the beast. His eyes burned, his voice was icy. "You will die, human." But the knight merely rose, holding his sword, and replied, "I will die if I must, as long as you do not live to see the dawn." The struggle grew fiercer. Humans and darkness merged into one bloody storm. With each passing minute, hundreds of bodies fell, and the very earth groaned under the weight of the battle. And for the first time, the alliance of vampire and werewolf was threatened. The Alpha, wounded and exhausted, felt that Arenhel was in no hurry to share his strength. The vampire, meanwhile, saw that the beast was too susceptible to rage and losing control. But as long as the enemy was common, their alliance held. As night approached morning, both armies were bleeding dry. The battlefield was strewn with bodies, the air saturated with smoke and death. And then a horn sounded across the plain. The humans had brought reinforcements, another army, and the war was just beginning. The second human army descended upon the plain with a thunder of drums and the gleam of torches. Their ranks were dense, spears and shields formed a wall, and the prayers of the Templars drowned out the cries of the dying. It seemed the very earth trembled as thousands of boots struck in unison. The werewolf, covered in blood, rose to his feet, pulling a glowing blade from his shoulder that had nearly killed him. His body trembled with rage, but also with pain. Every movement sent fire through his wounds. He knew, if he fell now, he would be trampled. Arenhel, however, stood calmly, as if everything happening was merely part of a pre-written play. His eyes burned, and his lips uttered words in a dead language. From the earth, black spires began to rise, resembling claws that tore at the soil and the sky. "What are you doing?" the werewolf snarled, turning to his ally. "What must be done?" the vampire answered coldly. "Their army is too vast. We will summon a power that will consume their souls." The earth split open. From beneath it flowed rivers of blood, not water, but the very essence of the fallen. Shadows screamed, reaching out to the living. The humans stopped. Their ranks faltered. The priests cried out prayers, but it was too late. From the blood rose a demon, a black creature woven from bones and ash, with eyes that reflected the entire battlefield. Its roar was louder than thunder, and with each strike of its paw, hundreds of warriors were torn to shreds. A coldness settled in the werewolf's chest. The power Arenhel had summoned was not of this world. It tore the air, saturated the earth with darkness, and even he, a child of the curse, felt his soul tremble. "You promised war," he snarled, "but you didn't say you'd sacrifice my pack." Arenhel smirked. "To raise the demon, the blood of the strong was needed. Your dead brothers provided it. Now their rage is eternal." The beast's eyes flared crimson. He wanted to lunge at the vampire right there, on the battlefield. But the cries of the humans, the smell of blood, the demon's howl, everything mixed, and rage once again consumed his mind. He threw himself at the enemies, tearing them apart by the dozens as if wanting to drown out the pain of betrayal. Meanwhile, the demon and the undead crushed the human ranks. Their sacred relics still shone, but the light dimmed under the onslaught of darkness. Victory seemed close, but suddenly the sky flared. From beyond the horizon appeared a detachment of horsemen. Their armor shone with white flame, and in their hands they held spears forged in the ancient forges of the Templar Order. With them rode priests who carried the Ark of Light, a relic capable of stopping even immortals. "Warriors of Light," the people cried. "They have come." Inspiration returned to their hearts. Hundreds of fallen rose again, ranks closed, and the battle flared with new intensity. The demon howled, but the light of the ark tore through part of its body. Arenhel clenched his teeth for the first time. He understood that his magic was not boundless. "This is just a delay," he whispered, "but their light will burn out, like everything else." The werewolf at that moment tore a knight in half. But out of the corner of his mind, he saw the vampire drawing strength not only from enemies, but also from his own warriors, the undead and even living servants. The beast felt. His ally was a parasite, devouring everyone around for one thing: power. As night approached morning, the battlefield was a nightmare. Thousands of bodies, rivers of blood, smoke and ash. The human army still held, but their ranks thinned. The demon roared, but its body melted under the light of the ark. And in the shadow of a ruined tower, the werewolf stood opposite Arenhel. His eyes burned, his claws were ready to strike. "You use me," he said in a low voice. "I am not your dog." Arenhel looked at him and smiled coldly. "You are a blade in my hand, as long as I allow you to be sharp." Silence hung between them for a moment. Even the thunder of battle seemed distant. The alliance, forged in blood, cracked for the first time. But there was no time for a rupture. The humans gathered their last strength for a strike. And if the alliance fell right now, both would be destroyed. Night was giving way to dawn, and the crimson sky painted the battlefield in shades of hell. Thousands of bodies lay strewn across the ground. Smoke from burning siege engines rose to the sky, and the smell of blood and char permeated every stone. The werewolf, wounded with claws spattered with blood, breathed heavily. His strength waned, but rage kept him on his feet. Every movement brought pain, but the beast did not give up. Arenhel stood on the ruins of the tower, his cloak billowing, eyes burning like two torches. His magic fed on the death around him. But he too felt. The light of the ark was burning him, like a red-hot blade in his heart. From the human ranks emerged the Templars. There were 12 of them, each bearing the sign of the sun on his chest. In the center walked the chief priest, carrying the ark. He raised it above his head, and light streamed onto the field, like dawn arriving early. The undead moaned and crumbled to dust. The demon, raised from blood, howled, its body cracking, and finally it disintegrated into a whirlwind of ash. Even Arenhel staggered, feeling his skin crack under the radiance. "Your time has come, creature," the priest proclaimed loudly. "You and your dog will go where there is no night, no shadow." The werewolf snarled. "I am not their dog." But the light of the ark struck him, and his body exploded with pain. He fell to his knees, clawing at the ground, his scream echoing over the field, overriding the din of battle. His fur burned, his muscles smoked, and he understood. The ark was made to obliterate those like him. Arenhel leapt down, spreading darkness like wings. He stood between the ark and the beast, his voice cold. "He is mine, and only I will decide when he falls." "You are mistaken," the priest replied. "Today you both shall die." Fiery spears of the Templars plunged into the ground, forming a circle. The light from the ark intensified, turning night into day. The vampire hissed. His body began to melt. But he raised his hands, summoning his last powers. From the earth rose shadows, no longer an army, but the very essence of darkness. They closed around Arenhel, forming a barrier. Light and darkness collided. The air exploded with a crack, as if the sky was falling. The werewolf, barely alive, raised his head. His gaze met the vampire's. In those eyes was everything: rage, hatred, and understanding. If he did not stand by Arenhel now, they would both perish. Gathering his remaining strength, the beast rose. His howl tore through the heavens. He lunged at the Templars, sweeping them aside, tearing at their shining armor with his claws. Every touch of the arc burned him like fire, but he continued, breaking the enemy formation. "Hold the line," the priest cried. Arenhel, seizing the moment, stepped forward. His hands darkened, turning into claws. He plunged them into the earth, and the plane itself trembled. Streams of blood erupted from the cracks and surrounded the ark, trying to consume it. Light and darkness met in a deadly duel. The priest uttered his final spell. The ark flared so brightly that the battlefield turned into a white sea. Humans and undead closed their eyes. The werewolf screamed, his body tearing apart from within. Arenhel also cried out. For the first time, his voice sounded not like a command, but like the cry of a creature in pain. And then, the unthinkable happened. The ark exploded. The explosion was not of fire, but of light. It shattered into thousands of fragments, each plunging into the earth, leaving glowing trails. The Templars who held the circle were incinerated. The priest fell, his eyes extinguished. The battlefield fell silent. The werewolf lay, his body smoking, but he was breathing. His gaze was full of pain and hatred. Arenhel stood, but his cloak was burned, his skin cracked, and his eyes shone even brighter than before. "They wanted to destroy us," he said softly, "but they gave me more than I could wish for." He raised a hand, and from the earth began to rise the charred bodies of the Templars. Their eyes glowed with blood-red light. Now they were his. The werewolf snarled, looking at the vampire. "You betrayed me. You betrayed everyone." Arenhel smiled, baring his fangs. "No, beast. I gave you new life. But remember, if you weaken, I will take it back." A chasm lay between them, but the enemy was defeated. The humans fled, their armies scattered. The battlefield remained to the darkness. And that night, a legend was born, an alliance of blood and fangs that destroyed the light. The battlefield was silent. The screams had long since faded, and only ravens circled over the mountains of corpses. Where an arc of light had recently shone, a black chasm now gaped, exuding smoke and cold. People fled, but many did not make it. Their shadows remained on the ground, burned by the light, and their bodies were taken by the darkness. Arenhel stood on a rise, like a king who had received a throne of blood. His new warriors, the dead, raised from fallen Templars, stood motionless, ready to carry out any command. Their eyes glowed with crimson flame, and a new order was reflected in each of them. "Night has triumphed," the vampire declared. His voice echoed across the plain. "And from this night, a new era will begin. The era of the Empire." The werewolf, wounded and weary, looked up at him. His breath was ragged, his eyes burned with a scarlet light. But something else was building within him. Suspicion, anger, a feeling that he had been deceived again. "Empire," he snarled. "You spoke of revenge, of freedom for us, for the pack. But all I see is your power." Arenhel leaned towards him, his face burned by the light of the ark, but his smile remained cold as steel. Revenge and freedom are merely steps to something greater. We cannot live in holes and hide from the light. We must build a world where darkness rules openly. This will be the Empire of Night. The beast clenched his claws so hard that the ground beneath him cracked. "What if I don't want to be part of your empire?" "Then," the vampire replied calmly, you will become its first enemy. For a moment, a deadly silence hung between them. But the werewolf turned away, unable to find the strength to lunge at his ally. He was weak, wounded, and deep within. His animalistic nature whispered, "Wait, watch, strike when he reveals himself." Arankle no longer looked at him. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, where the remnants of human fortifications were burning down. "We will go further," he said, addressing his warriors in the shadows. "We will take castles, cities, kingdoms. Let the day belong to the sun, but the night will be ours." And the campaign began. Cities fell one after another. People, having lost hope after the Ark's demise, could not resist the new power. Wherever Arankle appeared, walls crumbled, armies fled, and the survivors swore allegiance to him. The werewolf fought alongside him, but hatred festered in his heart. He saw how the vampire turned even his allies into undead, stripping them of their will. He saw how warriors from his pack, fallen in battle, rose again, but no longer wolves, but shadows serving only one master. At night, sitting on the ruins of another city, the beast looked at the moon and snarled into the void. His brothers were dead. His freedom was dissolving, and every new step Arankle took towards greatness was a step towards his own enslavement. But a plan was forming in the beast's heart. He was not a master of intrigue like the vampire, but he knew, to defeat darkness, sometimes you have to become an even wilder darkness. A year after the battle, a new citadel was erected in the heart of the ruined human capital. Black spires shot into the sky like claws ready to tear the sun. There, Arankle declared himself Emperor of the Night. Crowds of dead and living servants knelt, greeting him. Their cries merged into a single howl. But in the depths of the hall, among the shadows, stood the werewolf. His eyes burned with hatred, and when the crowd cried, "Long live the Empire!" he merely clenched his teeth. He knew that one day claws would sink into the heart of this emperor, and then the Empire of Night would drown in its own blood. The Empire of Night grew like a plague. In a few years, it swallowed all the lands that once belonged to humans. City towers were shrouded in darkness. Fear and silence reigned in the villages. The living toiled by day, the dead guarded them by night. Where temple bells once rang, now only the cries of captive souls resounded. Arankle sat on a black throne, as if darkness itself had embodied in a body. His eyes burned like embers, and every word he spoke became law. He was building a new order, an order of eternal night. But the higher the throne rose, the stronger the resistance grew. The werewolf disappeared from the palace more and more often. Officially, he was the governor of the borderlands, a loyal warlord of the Empire. In reality, he sought those who were still capable of taking up arms against the vampire. At night, he roamed the mountains and forests, finding refuges for fugitives. People initially rushed at him with spears, but when he tore iron with his teeth and left them alive, they began to listen. "You think the vampire is your main enemy," he said, sitting by a fire among the rebels. "But he is my enemy too. He uses me, just as he used you. Your temples, your families, your warriors, everything has become his property. So it will be with my pack. If we don't strike first, he will devour us all." People who had recently fought against him now listened to his words. Among them were remnants of Templars, former knights, even simple peasants. One goal united them, a thirst for revenge. Thus, the shadow of rebellion was born, an alliance of humans and beast. Meanwhile, In the heart of the capital, Orankle sensed changes. He noticed that the beast was absent longer, and his reports on the borders were too laconic. The vampire understood. The alliance was crumbling. One night, he summoned the werewolf to the throne room. Huge columns cast shadows, and in these shadows, dead warriors stirred. "You hide from me too often," the emperor said coldly. "I hear rumors. They say you are gathering people around you. Is the power I gave you not enough?" The werewolf stepped forward. His claws gleamed. His eyes flashed. "Power? I see you building your kingdom from bones. I see my brothers turning into your slaves. You call this an empire. I call this a prison." The vampire slowly rose from the throne. His voice thundered. "You forgot who tore you from the chains of light. You are alive only because I allowed you to live." The beast snarled, his chest heaving. "No, Orankle. I am alive because I tore my own flesh from the fire of the ark. You merely took advantage of it." For a moment, they stood facing each other, and even the dead guards did not move, sensing the tension. But Orankle merely smiled. "Very well. Play your games, beast, but remember, night always devours those who stand against it." The werewolf turned and left, leaving the throne room in silence. But his heart burned. He understood. An open fight now was madness. Time was needed. A weapon capable of killing one who had survived the ark was needed. And that weapon began to be found. In the abandoned catacombs of an old temple, human rebels discovered ancient scrolls. They spoke of the Blood Heart, an artifact created during the First War with vampires. The heart was a curse, capable of burning any of the dark kind, even if they drank the power of night itself. But to awaken it, the blood of the strongest wolf was needed. The werewolf listened to these words in silence. There was no fear in his eyes. He knew one day he would have to sacrifice himself. But if his blood became the key to Orankle's downfall, then so be it. Meanwhile, the Emperor of Night was planning even bolder schemes. He was no longer content with human lands. His gaze turned higher, to where the stars illuminated the heavens. "If the night belongs to me," he told his confidants, "then one day the very darkness of space will obey me. The sun will be banished, and then eternal night will come." His words frightened even the most devoted, but no one dared to object. Only in the shadows, beyond the palace walls, a conspiracy was already growing, and the heart of the rebellion beat louder and louder. The first strike of the rebels was as silent as a whisper of wind. On a dark night, as Orankle's black guards patrolled the borders of the capital, several people slipped into the city. Among them were former Templars, 2 peasants who had lost their families, and 1 woman, a healer who knew more about shadows than any mage. They did not attack the castle. They set fire to grain warehouses, poisoned wells, and left a symbol on the walls, a wolf's paw clutching a heart. The inhabitants of the capital whispered, "The wolf has come." The wolf is not afraid of the night. The werewolf saw all this from afar. He was not among them, but it was his sign. His alliance grew, and the empire trembled for the first time. Orankle's wrath was terrible. "Their heads must lie at my feet," he roared when he learned of the audacity. His voice cracked the walls. "Find these rats, burn their holes. Let the night itself devour their flesh." The dead legions moved along the roads. Villages were burned to the ground. People were seized. Interrogations turned into torture. Blood flowed like a river. But the wolf's paw appeared again and again, on gates, on walls, even on the body of one of the vampire captains killed at night. Arankle understood. These were not just rumors. This was a challenge. The werewolf gathered the rebels in the catacombs of the ruined temple. There, among bones and dust, they forged their weapons, sharpened arrows, and wrote oaths in blood. The healer brought out a scroll that spoke of the blood heart. "It sleeps," she said, "but it can be awakened. Only sacrifice is needed." All eyes turned to the wolf. He was silent. He understood. They awaited his blood. His essence was the key to destroying Arankle. But if he gave it now, the strength might not be enough. The artifact was weak. Awakening would take time. And in that time, the vampire would overtake them all. "No," he finally snarled. "My blood will be the price when the time comes. But for now, we strike him with claws, not heart." The people accepted this decision, but in their eyes, the question already burned. Will he be ready to sacrifice himself when the time comes? Meanwhile, in the castle, the Emperor of Night felt the darkness around him thicken. Reports reached him that the rebels were acting too organized. He knew. Behind them lay a mind, a will. He knew that the beast was behind them. And one night, looking at the map of conquered lands, Arankle smiled his cold smile. "So, you decided to play against me?" he whispered. "Excellent. But know this, I always play to the end." The sparks of rebellion flared brighter. In one city, rebels attacked the convoy of a vampire governor. They decapitated him and threw his head at the castle gates. In another place, they destroyed a caravan carrying weapons, leaving only the wolf's mark behind. Each of their strikes was like a bite, small but deadly. And the brighter the rebellion blazed, the closer the moment when the wolf and the vampire would meet face to face again. But this time, not as allies. For a long time, Arankle sent legions of the dead to hunt for the rebels. But when his captains began to return one by one, decapitated, when cities stopped obeying and even the vampire's junior lords began to whisper about the weakness of the throne room, he understood. The time had come to act himself. "Let the night be my blade," he said, and a cloak of black mist fell upon his shoulders. The Emperor himself led the hunt. The first city fell in one night. Arankle entered it without an army. He moved like a shadow, and everyone who crossed his path felt dead, as if darkness itself drained their life. Houses turned to ash, children cried, old people prayed, but their words were stifled, because prayer itself did not penetrate the shroud of night. In the morning, the city was empty. No bodies, no blood, only empty streets and a sign. The Emperor had been here. The rebels shuddered. The news spread quickly. Arankle himself was on their trail. The werewolf convened a council in the catacombs. Faces were pale, eyes filled with fear. "We cannot stop him," one of the Templars said. "He is not just a vampire. He is the embodiment of night. Every blow we strike is just a scratch." "Then strike deeper," the wolf snarled. "He is not omnipotent either. He can be wounded." But doubt arose in his own heart. He saw the ashes of the city, saw the empty houses. He understood. Arankle had become stronger than when they first formed their alliance. And the doubts were confirmed. At night, the rebels set an ambush in a gorge. They blocked the path with collapsed rocks, hid in the shadows, and prepared arrows with poisoned iron. When Arankle entered the gorge, the air itself darkened. The people fired. Hundreds of arrows pierced his body, but he merely laughed, and the darkness dissolved the iron as if they were dry branches. He raised his hand, and one of the Templars burst into flames, burning alive. Another began to scream, and his scream turned into a swarm of bats that scattered in all directions. The rebels faltered. The werewolf lunged into battle. His claws tore through the air, striking the Emperor's chest. But a rankle caught him by the neck, pinning him against a rock. "Look, beast," he whispered. "The heart already listens to your roar. All that remains is your blood, and it will become my crown." The wolf choked, but with his last strength, he broke free and headbutted a rankle's face. The latter staggered back a step, and the healer managed to shout, "Now!" The Templars brought down a column. Stones crashed, cutting off part of the undead and blocking the passage. The people grabbed the heart and rushed away through the side tunnels. A rankle rose from the dust, smiling. His eyes glowed brighter than ever. "Run," he said. "But know this. The longer the heart beats, the stronger the hunger grows within me. And when I find you, I will drink it along with you." They escaped that night, but they did not win. The heart beat louder, and each beat echoed in the werewolf's chest as if it were his own heart. He felt the connection between him and the artifact was growing stronger, and the harder the heartbeat, the clearer it became. Without his blood, the awakening would never be complete. The blood heart beat louder and louder. Its hum reverberated through the catacombs where the rebels were hiding. Each beat echoed in the werewolf's chest. His breathing became heavier, the beast within howled and yearned to break free. "It's connected to you," the healer said, looking into his eyes. "The heart was created to subjugate the blood of the strongest. You are the key, beast. Without you, it will not fully awaken." The werewolf clenched his fists. "So I am the sacrifice?" "No," she whispered. "You are the altar. The difference is that the sacrifice dies, and the altar opens the door. The only question is who will pass through it, you or him." His fangs gleamed in the dim torchlight. He had no intention of dying for others' prayers. Meanwhile, a rankle began his game. He knew the rebels would sooner or later seek new refuges, cities where they would be welcomed. And he turned the cities into traps. In the first city, the inhabitants met the fugitives with bread and wine. The rebels relaxed, but at night, the streets filled with whispers. People, one after another, turned into servants of the Emperor. Their eyes shone red, and darkness dripped from their mouths. In the second city, they opened the gates and offered shelter. But the walls suddenly moved. Stone turned into flesh, and houses became cages. People found themselves trapped in a living city, where every alley was a womb and every house a maw. In the third city, silence reigned. No children, no old people, only empty houses. But as soon as the rebels entered, a ringing sound filled the streets. Bells rang without hands, sound shattered the mind, and darkness thickened, carving them from within. They fled again and again, losing people, friends, comrades. But worst of all, the werewolf felt. The heart pulsed with these traps. Each new city, each new trap strengthened the connection. The healer said, "He doesn't just want the heart. He feeds it with fear, pain, the blood of cities. The more we run, the harder it beats. And the closer my blood," the werewolf snarled. One night, he left the camp alone. The moon was hidden behind clouds. He knelt before the heart and placed his hand on its surface. The stone was hot, as if alive. And he heard a voice. Not a rankle's, not the healer's. A voice from the depths. "You are my flesh. You are my bone. When the hour comes, you will decide who will be emperor, him or you." The wolf pulled back his hand. His eyes glowed. For the first time, he understood. The heart could be stolen from a rankle, but only if he risked everything. Arangel, meanwhile, stood on the tower of his castle. He felt the beating of the heart even at a distance. His smile was cold. "Yes, beast," he whispered. "The heart speaks to you, but it always lies. In the end, it will choose the one who is stronger. And you know, that will be me." And the night unfolded, ready for a new hunt. The night was moonless. The catacombs trembled, as if the earth itself was trying to push out the cursed stone. The bloody heart beat so loudly that it seemed like the clang of a hammer forging someone's destiny. The werewolf sat opposite him, eyes closed. His breathing grew heavier, claws scratching the stone. "Don't do it." The sorceress placed a hand on his shoulder. "The heart knows no friends. It devours anyone who touches it." He looked up. The light of the beast danced in his eyes. "It wants power. I will give it to it, but not for Arangel. For us." He plunged a claw into his palm and allowed blood to fall onto the stone. The heart shuddered, beating faster. The altar lit up with a crimson light. In the werewolf's veins, power surged at that very instant, hot as flame and cold as death. He howled, but it was not a cry of pain. It was a roar that made stones crumble from the walls. His body began to change. Muscles swelled with black energy. Fangs elongated, eyes flared crimson. The beast within him got what it had waited for: nourishment. "You are not the master," the sorceress whispered, backing away. "You are a vessel." But he was no longer listening. When Arangel's undead army descended upon another rebel hideout, for the first time, they didn't flee. The werewolf emerged to meet them. The pack of the dead rushed forward, but the wolf surged ahead, his claws slicing through them like ash. His roar was thunder, shattering bones. He moved too fast, too furiously, like an element itself. And then, for the first time, he saw fear in the eyes of the dead. But along with the power came something else. He began to hear voices, whispers inside his head. "Hit him, tear him, take him. You need more blood. Give. Every time his claws tore an enemy, the voices laughed. Every time he gulped air, eager for battle, they demanded a new strike. And somewhere deeper, in this chorus, a familiar voice sounded. Arangel's voice. "Good beast, you have tasted. Now my heart is not only in me, it is in you." After the battle, the rebels celebrated victory. For the first time, they had stood their ground. For the first time, they had repelled the enemy. People sang, shouted, believed. But the werewolf sat aside, breathing heavily. His paws trembled, his eyes still glowed red. On his fangs remained the blood of enemies, and not only enemies. He saw the faces of those who had fallen accidentally under his claws, his own. The sorceress approached and quietly said, "You understand now. The heart is a double-edged sword. It kills the enemy. But sooner or later, it will kill you too." The werewolf looked up. His breathing was ragged, but there was fury in his voice. "Then I will kill it sooner." High in his tower, Arangel also felt the battle. His lips twisted into a cold smile. "You took a step where I wanted you to. You and the heart are now one. And that means, beast, you are already mine." The heart beat faster and faster, as if it knew. The hunt had begun. The werewolf stood in the ruined temple, breathing heavily. His claws were still dripping with the blood of fallen enemies. Suddenly, he felt the world around him changed. The air thickened, the torches flickered, and a voice, cold and commanding, resonated in his head. "Look at me." He flinched, Another's flame flared in his eyes. Before his mind's eye appeared a throne of bones, and on it, Arangel. The Emperor sat calmly, as if watching from afar. But his words sounded as if he were whispering directly into his ear. Do you feel the heart beast? It is not yours. It is mine. And through it, you are mine. The werewolf snarled, trying to push away the voice. But his body trembled. Muscles began to obey another's will. Claws rose against his own. In the camp, the rebel screamed. The werewolf lunged forward, but not at enemies, but at his own. His fangs tore the air towards the Templar. Claws gleamed near the sorceress's face. He controls him, one of the warriors cried out. The sorceress tore an amulet from her belt and rushed straight toward the beast. Fight, she screamed. This is not his heart, but yours. Hear yourself. But the voice inside tore his mind. Kill them. Their blood will warm the heart. You will become stronger. You want this. His body trembled. Fangs almost touched the sorceress's throat. Another moment, and it would all have been over. And then he heard something else. Not a voice, a roar. Deep, primal, coming not from outside, but from within. His own beast rose against another's will. I am not your dog, he growled, pushing the sorceress away and digging his claws into the ground. I am the fang of the night. At that same second, the connection broke. Arangel in his castle leaned back on his throne, clenching his teeth. For the first time, he felt resistance. The werewolf fell to his knees, breathing heavily. The sorceress caught him, holding him close. You stood firm, but next time he will be stronger. He raised his head, and in his eyes burned not only the red flame of the heart, but also his own will. Let him try, he said hoarsely. Every time he reaches for me, I learn his weaknesses. High in the tower, Arangel looked into the night. His smile was thin, but his eyes were full of fury. Good beast. You decided to play? Then I will make you kill those you want to protect. And when you understand that there is no difference between your claws and my fangs, you yourself will come to me. The night was black as an abyss. Heavy clouds scudded across the sky, and the wind howled like a pack of hungry wolves. On the horizon burned the ruins of fortresses, the remnants of the empire, where the last vampire troops still lingered. But all attention was focused on the center, on the throne of bones, where Arangel waited. The werewolf stood opposite, enveloped in the whisper of the heart. His eyes burned with red flame, but in them still glowed a spark, not vampiric, not demonic, but his own, beastly alive. You have come, Arangel said coldly, and now it is all over. The heart beat, and a wave of power crashed down on both. Stones trembled, the earth cracked, as if it itself could not withstand the clash of two masters. The rebels stayed at a distance. The sorceress clutched to her chest an amulet she had created from fragments of ancient relics. Her voice trembled. He can do it. He must succeed before the heart devours both of them. The battle was unlike any before it. The werewolf tore space with his claws, and each of his blows was the roar of thunder. Arangel moved smoothly, deadly beautiful, his fangs gleaming like blades, and his steps left trails of shadows behind him. You are merely a beast, the Emperor hissed, and I am eternity. But the beast responded with a roar, and each of his blows broke the walls of the castle. And then the werewolf understood. He could not be defeated with blades. The heart was the key. It beat in the chests of both. One heart, two wills, and only one could remain. He turned to the sorceress. Their gazes met. She understood everything without words. "If you do this, you will be no more," she whispered. He nodded. "But the world will remain." The werewolf plunged his claws into his own chest. Blood spurted with crimson flame. He grabbed the heart, tearing from his body, and roared so that the heavens opened. Arangel froze. "No, you wouldn't dare." "This is my choice," the beast gasped. He squeezed the heart in his palms. It shrieked as if alive. Arangel was thrown backward. His body began to crack like a statue of ash. He tried to grasp the power, but it slipped away. "I am the Emperor," he cried, but his voice was drowned in the roar. The heart shattered. A flash enveloped the entire battlefield. The rebels covered their faces with their hands, their bodies trembling. When the light faded, the castle was empty. Neither Arangel nor the werewolf. Only ash scattered by the wind. The sorceress stood alone amidst the ruins. In her hands remained only the amulet, and on it gleamed a drop of blood. "You are gone. But you freed us," she whispered, and her voice echoed through the dead walls. Years passed. The vampire empire fell. People began to build cities again, to plow fields, to laugh and sing. But every night, when the wind howled especially loudly, they heard a roar in it. Not malicious, not greedy for blood, but proud and free. The roar of a beast who chose not power, but sacrifice. And the whisper remained in legends. Freedom is always born of blood. But sometimes, from the blood of one who could have ruled the world. And there was a time of darkness, a time of fangs and claws, when people lived in fear and the children of the night ruled over their homes. Vampires built their throne rooms from bones and drank power from the blood of the living. And it seemed that the end would never come. But one rose, neither human nor monster, but one who carried within him both the fury of the beast and the pain of man. His name is forgotten, for he himself erased it, leaving only legend. They simply called him the Werewolf. He stood against Emperor Arangel, whose heart beat in rhythm with the very night. Two held one destiny in their hands and decided whose eternity it would be. And the beast did what no one expected. He did not subjugate the heart, did not seize power. He tore it apart. And by doing so, he broke the chains that bound the world. Many years have passed since then. The vampire empire became dust. People build new homes, plant grain, and children run in the streets without fear. But on long winter nights, when the blizzard tears at roofs and howls in the slums, people listen to the wind. In its roar, a howl is heard. And the old folks whisper to the children, "It is he, the guardian, who gave himself for freedom. And as long as his voice sounds in the night, darkness will not return." And it is written in the chronicles. There are rulers who hold power in claws and fangs. But true strength lies in one who can open their hand and give it to the world.